Almost. Time for a photo op. It is Hollywood. Thank you so much for coming tonight, you guys. You know her as Topanga from Boy Meets World. Today she's here to celebrate her new book. You all have it, right?
Yeah.
It's called Normally This Would Be Cause for Concern. It's Tales of Calamity and Unrelenting Awkwardness. You guys, welcome Danielle Fishel.
I think you guys can probably hear me better like this, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to do a short reading for you guys, just so you can kind of hear the part of the book in my voice, so that maybe when you read it yourself, you'll be able to picture the way I meant for it to be read. And so I'm going to read some of the chapter of Wannabe Jock, which is chapter 5. Oh, perfect. Then I'll just pick up where you left off. Okay. Ever since I was a little girl, I've enjoyed sports. Primarily, I enjoy watching professional football and professional basketball. If you follow me on Twitter, at Danielle Fishel, what are you waiting for? You know that I am a die-hard Dallas Cowboys and Los Angeles Lakers fan, which for those of you who are sports illiterate are football and basketball teams, respectively. I initially got into sports because my dad is very athletic and loves to spend his weekends parked in front of the television watching anything and everything that is going on in the world of sports. My dad worked long hours during the week and often on weekends, so I cherished quality time with him. Some of my earliest memories are of us watching Magic Johnson and the Lakers take on Larry Bird and the Boston Celtics. We also watched the Los Angeles Rams football games before they picked up and moved to St. Louis in 1994. When they moved, my dad was bitter. He felt like he could no longer root for them and instead started rooting for the Dallas Cowboys. I'm sure the fact that they had won Super Bowl championships in 1992 and 1993 had nothing to do with that decision, right, Dad? Anyway, I jumped on the Big D bandwagon too and have never looked back, even though that bandwagon father of mine has since gone back to being a Rams fan for some reason. There's absolutely no father-daughter rivalry about this at all, can you tell? Over the years, I've learned to play quite a few sports too. I've been in gymnastics and have played soccer, softball, bowling. Does that count as a sport? Ping pong? Does that count as a sport? I'm really reaching here, folks. Golf, and well, that's about it. Unfortunately, I can't say I'm great at any of them. I mean, I'm not terrible. I can throw a nice spiral with a football. I can play catch with a baseball. I've been known to kick butt at ping pong, and my golf game is improving, albeit slowly. But not excelling at something doesn't mean I still don't enjoy playing. I'm competitive, and even if I don't end up winning, I love the opportunity to try. When I was in elementary school, we always played Red Rover during recess. There are probably quite a few of you who don't know what Red Rover is because it can be a bit aggressive and most schools don't allow it to be played anymore. Red Rover is a game where kids stand next to each other in two opposing lines about 30 feet apart. Then all of the kids in both lines hold hands to create a chain link of arms. One line is usually called the East line and the other is called the West line. One at a time, one of the lines, let's say the East line for example, sings, Red Rover, send Danielle right over. Now, they don't always sing the name Danielle, but this is my book, so I'm going to use my name. And when you write a book, you can use your name if you'd like. You're welcome. Then, Danielle is supposed to run from the West line to the East line and try to break through two players' linked arms. If Danielle is successful in doing this, of course I am, of course she is, she gets to pick a player to go back to the West team with her. The whole goal is eventually to get every person onto your team to prove that you are strong and brave. Or something like that. I don't really know what the point is. One day, during a particularly riveting game of Red Rover, one of my female friends went running over to break the chain of arms between two boys on the opposing team. They were much bigger and stronger than she was, and they clotheslined her. My poor little friend fell to the ground, gasping for air. I don't remember her name, so we'll call her Danielle. Just kidding, we'll call her Stacy. One of the boys, who doesn't deserve a mention here, started laughing in her face and calling her a whiny baby. I don't remember his name either, to be honest, so we'll just call him Dan. Ha! See what I did there? I was so furious at him that I ran from my team over to his team and told him that he needed to apologize to her or I was going to tell on him. Unlike Dan, I was a good kid and did not like to get into trouble with anyone, so that threat would have scared me straight. It didn't scare him though. Nope. Dan socked me right in the eye as hard as he could. I immediately started crying, took Stacy's hand, and left the game with her. I thought about going to tell someone what had happened, but I really didn't want to deal with the wrath of Dan for the rest of my elementary school days. Any boy who thinks nothing of socking a girl in the face is obviously a sociopath, right? Later, when my mom picked me up from school, I had a full shiner. My whole eye was puffy and black and blue. My mom demanded to know what happened, and because I believed her to be a rational woman who had a heart, I told her the story. I also told her that under no circumstances was she allowed to tell anyone about it. We were all going to forget that this had happened, and I was going to avoid Dan like the plague for the rest of my life. Problem solved. No, but that's not what happened. I wrongfully assumed my mom would handle the situation like I did. Like a big wuss. No, not my mother. She took me home and put a bag of frozen peas on my eye and told me to be ready to leave the house in 30 minutes. Where are we going? I asked. We're going to CCD and I am going to have a word with Dan's father, she said. Mom, no, I yelled. Until I was about 10 years old, my family attended a Catholic church, which meant I was required to attend catechism class, or CCD, on Wednesdays after school. I really disliked having to go to CCD after my regular school day, and my mom didn't particularly like having to take me. So, like the horrible Catholics we were, she wouldn't always make me go. On the day of the Red Rover incident, I hadn't been to CCD in a few weeks. I barely remembered that good old Dan the Girl Puncher was in my class, but my mom remembered everything, apparently. I begged and pleaded to no avail, and my mom drove me to CCD and dragged me out of our car and toward the church classroom. Dan wasn't there yet, so I prayed extra hard that Dan's parents had decided they wanted to skip CCD so they could spend a lovely afternoon with their psychopath child, and I could be spared this horrendous embarrassment. God did not answer my prayer that day. My mom was still fuming. She stood outside the CCD classroom with her arms tightly folded, every now and then muttering something like, "Who does he think he is?" Or, "I should punch him in the face." Even though I was furious that she was putting me through this awkward encounter, there was a part of me that loved seeing my mom this worked up. I knew that my parents loved me, but every now and then, usually when something either really amazing or really awful happened, I got to peer into the deep, dark depths of their love. And until I have kids of my own, I don't think I'll ever even scratch the surface of how profound that love is. Dan and his dad started across the parking lot and headed right toward us. My mom dropped her arms and took my hand. Please let this be swift and painless, I thought to myself while staring at the ground as we walked. When we got to within 10 feet of them, I looked up and made eye contact with Dan. His eyes were squinting, and he was scowling with disdain. This couldn't end well for me. "Sir, look at my daughter's face," my mom said in her sternest voice. "Do you see that black eye? Take a good hard look at it, and then you tell me if you think it is acceptable to raise a son who punches little girls in the eye." Dan's dad looked shocked. "Dan, did you punch Danielle in the face?" he asked. I wasn't thrilled with the way he said face. It was as if Dan and his dad had a previous discussion about where it was acceptable to punch a girl and where it wasn't, and face was apparently one of the no-nos. Dan, to his credit, didn't try to lie. He hung his head in what I perceived to be shame and nodded his head. Dan's dad took Dan by the hand and told him that this was completely unacceptable behavior and he was going to be severely punished. I hoped this meant that he was going to be severely punished right now in front of Danielle, but it did not. Dan's dad apologized to my mom and me, and then he made Dan apologize to both of us. My mom accepted and said that she hoped Dan really would be punished because it sure would be a shame if this event had to be reported to our school principal and Dan was expelled from elementary school. And then Dan's dad and my mom just sent Dan and me on our merry way into CCD, where Dan gave me the evil eye for a straight hour. I don't know what Dan's parents did to punish him, but other than the occasional stink eye from across the playground, he actually left me alone, and I never exchanged words or fists with him again. You'd think my previous elementary school experience with Dan would have permanently scared me away from giving or receiving punches, but it did not. Years later, when I was in high school, I became obsessed with working out. My parents had a gym in our home, and I would work out anytime I had the chance. My dad was an avid exerciser, and sometimes he and I would work out together. It was fun. We were both competitive, and I loved to see how much weight he could bench press, leg press, and squat. Of course, I was never able to come anywhere near doing the same weight he did, but I still liked to compare. I tried to compete with my dad over everything. How fast we could run, how much weight we could lift, whether I could beat him in arm wrestling. My mom was not thrilled with my competitive nature and wondered how it was possible that she, the ultimate girly girl, had given birth to a daughter who suddenly desired to be as manlike as her father. It was during this time that my mom told me that boys didn't usually like it when a girl could beat them in weightlifting and arm wrestling. I still didn't care. One Saturday afternoon, my dad and I were working out together in the gym. He was walking on the treadmill, and I was doing leg lifts and reverse curls on the leg extension machine. When he finished walking, he put on some boxing gloves and started to punches. I put the boxing gloves on my hands and delivered a few punches to his arms, and he was impressed with how strong I was. He told me to hit him as hard as I could in the arm a couple of times. Then I got tired. "Okay, your turn, Dad. Hit me as hard as you can," I said. "Danielle, I'm not going to hit you," he laughed. Well, this did not make me very happy. "What, because I'm a girl, you don't think I can take a punch to the arm?" I quipped. He told me that being a girl had nothing to do with it and that he just didn't want to hurt me. I assured him that he was not going to hurt me and that I could take a punch. Eventually, he relented and took a few light jabs at my right arm, but that wasn't going to work for me. "Dad, stop hitting me like a baby. Hit me as hard as you can. I promise I won't get hurt." I'm not sure why that worked, but it did. Bet all parents have a desire to punch their kids as hard as they can at least once, right? I mean, how could they not? I imagine kids bring a whole lot of joy most of the time, but can also completely suck the life and sanity out of a normal person occasionally. My dad said, "All right, one punch, okay?" I nodded and I braced myself for what came next. A swift punch to my flexed right arm. Instantly, I felt teeth chattering, brain-shaking pain and numbness all over. I swear my head must have looked like a bobblehead, and I had no control over it. I just stood there, shaking and frozen. My dad ripped his gloves off, grabbed my shoulders, looked me in the eye, and asked if I was okay. I started smiling while my teeth were still chattering, and I tried to bring feeling back into my arm. "I didn't really think you'd hit me as hard as you could, but I'm glad you did. I definitely won't ever ask you to do that again, though," I chattered. While I don't condone violence, there's something nice about knowing that if anyone messes with me, my dad could easily beat them up and then go to jail, because you're not allowed to beat people up. Yay, family stories. As freaked out as my dad was by the punching incident, he didn't exactly learn his lesson. About a year later, he took me out to play tennis. We had a community tennis court at the end of our street, and he would regularly take his ball machine out to practice returns. My dad was exceptionally good at tennis, and he even won a few singles and doubles tournaments at our local club. I was not that good at it and could never master a one-handed forehand. I always played with both hands on my racket for my forehand and backhand shots. This made me fairly slow to return balls, and I knew I wasn't much of a match for my dad. In typical me fashion, I didn't like this very much. Instead of just rallying back and forth, I asked my dad to serve me a few balls as fast as he could. He had a very fast serve that I rarely got to see because he always took it easy on me. He told me to get ready to return his serve, so I set myself up in the corner opposite his and got my two-handed forehanded shot ready. I watched him throw the ball into the air and hit it with his racket. That's the last thing I saw. The next thing I knew, his tennis ball was wedged perfectly in my right eye socket. My eyeball had never felt so much pain, and I clamped my hand over it and screamed. Panicked, my dad came running over to make sure he hadn't blinded me. I peeled my hand off my eye so he could look at it. I was fine. No popped blood vessels, no instant bruising, just some blurry vision and white stars when I closed my eyes. Suddenly, I started laughing. "Dad, how did that ball get to my eyes so quickly? I didn't even see it across the court." He cracked up. "Danielle, you just stood there, like you didn't even move a muscle. I don't think tennis is your sport. Let's go home." I still haven't found my sport, by the way. Thank you, guys.